Give me twins, and I'll pay your debt. But after one night, the virgin wealthy CEO won't let her go. The words from Chase Whitmore, the reclusive billionaire CEO from Aspen, were cold, but his eyes held a strange sadness. Have you ever been faced with an impossible choice, where the only options were bad and worse? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The golden invitation card trembled in Kenya Davis's hands as she stood at the gates of a mansion, her mother's life hanging on the impossible choice she was about to make. Name? The security guard barely glanced up. Kenya Davis. I'm with the catering staff. She smoothed her black uniform, the polyester scratching against her skin. A constant reminder she didn't belong in this world of marble and money. 6 blocks away, her mother lay in Atlanta Memorial's ICU. $146,000 in medical bills. No insurance. 3 jobs hadn't made a dent. The fundraiser had failed. The bank had laughed. This gala was her last hope. Not as a guest, but as someone invisible pouring champagne for people who spent more on watches than her yearly rent. The mansion opened before her like a different world. Crystal chandeliers reflected in polished floors, making Kenya feel like she was walking on stars, stars millions of miles beyond her reach. She balanced her tray, spine straight, eyes down, moving between groups of Atlanta's elite with practiced invisibility. Until he noticed her. Chase Whitmore stood apart from the crowd. 6'3", broad-shouldered, with intensity radiating from him like heat. Unlike the other guests who looked through her, his eyes followed her movements with a hunger that had nothing to do with the appetizer she served. Water, sir. She offered her tray, meeting his gaze directly, a small defiance. You don't belong here. His voice was low, meant only for her. Kenya stiffened. I'm just doing my job. No. Something flickered in his eyes. You're desperate. There's a difference. Before she could respond, the room tilted. The tray slipped from her fingers. Crystal shattered. Water splashed across imported tiles. Kenya felt herself falling. Strong arms caught her before she hit the floor. When did you last eat? His whisper was rough against her ear as he carried her from the ballroom, past startled guests and her horrified supervisor. Yesterday morning. The admission fell from her lips, humiliation burning her cheeks. Please, I need this job. You need help. He set her down in a quiet office, closed the door. I've seen that look before. The one that says you'd do anything right now. Kenya's throat tightened. My mother needs surgery. $146,000. I've tried everything. Something shifted in his expression. Everything, almost everything. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze steadily. He studied her for a long moment. I have a proposition. Later, she would remember how the world seemed to hold its breath in that moment, the last heartbeat of her old life. Just one night, one condition. His voice dropped lower. Give me twins, and your mother's hospital debt disappears. The words from Chase Whitmore, the reclusive billionaire CEO from Aspen, were cold, but his eyes held a strange sadness. Kenya had no options left. No insurance, no family, just this absurd offer from a man she'd met only once, at her lowest point. Why me? Why twins? My reasons are my own. He slid a business card across the desk. My penthouse. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. As his penthouse elevator doors closed behind her the next evening, Kenya realized she wasn't just selling 9 months of her body. She was selling a part of her soul she'd never get back. But for her mother, there was no price too high. Have you ever been faced with an impossible choice, when the only options were bad and worse? Share your experience below. Would you take this deal to save someone you love? The man who could buy anything stood before Kenya, powerful yet somehow untouched, literally, as he confessed the secret that changed everything. Chase Whitmore's penthouse overlooked a sleeping Atlanta, lights twinkling like the promises of dreams most people never reached. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture in shades of gray and black. No photos, no personal touches. A beautiful, empty space, like the man himself. Why? He offered a glass, his fingers steady while hers trembled. I'd rather get to the details, Kenya said, refusing to sit. Better to stay on her feet for this. Ready to run, if needed. Chase's jaw tightened. Straight to business. I respect that. He placed a folder on the glass coffee table. The contract is straightforward. You carry twins to term. I handle all medical expenses, plus your mother's surgery and a generous compensation package. And tonight, Kenya forced herself to ask. His gaze dropped to the contract. Tonight, we attempt conception. Natural method or artificial? A muscle jumped in his cheek. Natural. Kenya stepped closer, studying him. Expensive suit. Perfect haircut. Power in every line of his body. Yet something didn't fit. A hesitation that shouldn't be there. You've done this before? This arrangement? No. His answer came too quickly. Then why me? Why not use a professional surrogate? His eyes met hers, and the intensity nearly knocked her back. Because when I saw you at the gala, the way you carried yourself despite everything, I knew you were strong enough. Strong enough for what? The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. I've never been with a woman. The confession fell between them like a stone in still water. Kenya blinked. I'm not gay. He turned toward the window. I was raised in a conservative Utah community. Intimacy before marriage was forbidden. Then I built my companies, and there was never time. Never trust. Everyone wanted something. Kenya stared at his back, recalibrating everything. So I'm what practice? He turned, and the vulnerability in his eyes caught her off guard. You're someone who needs something concrete. Not false promises or flattery. Just a transaction. Clean. Honest. There's nothing honest about buying a woman. I'm not buying you. I'm asking for your help and offering mine in return. Kenya's fingers brushed his as she accepted the contract, electricity shooting up her arm, his sharp intake of breath confirming he felt it too. Why twins? Why so specific? Pain flashed across his face. Family reasons. She should have walked out, should have taken her dignity and left. But her mother's face flashed in her mind. The hospital bills, the time running out. The contract requires a signature. His voice was steady again, controlled. Kenya picked up the pen, hesitated. And tonight, something shifted in his expression. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. Tonight, he said softly, we can try. Or, we could just talk, hold each other. The rest, he swallowed. The rest can wait. When he reached for her, she expected demand, entitlement. Instead, his touch was reverent, trembling. Just hold me tonight, he whispered. The rest can wait. By morning, the contract lay and signed, and Kenya was gone. Would you view someone differently knowing they've never been intimate despite having everything else? Drop a heart emoji if you believe connection runs deeper than physical experience. 2 pink lines appeared on the pregnancy test as Kenya stared in disbelief. The one night she hadn't gone through with the deal had still changed her life forever. Impossible, she whispered to the empty bathroom of her Atlanta apartment. They hadn't even, not really, just held each other through the night. His confession, her tears, falling asleep in his arms, feeling strangely protected. She took another test, then another. 3 tests, 3 sets of pink lines mocking her disbelief. Chase's business card burned in her pocket. One call would solve everything. He'd wanted this, wanted children, had offered millions, but something stopped her. The memory of vulnerability in his eyes, the gentleness of his hands, the way he'd respected her boundaries. This wasn't the transaction he'd planned, and she couldn't bear to be another person who wanted something from him. Chicago. She had a cousin there who owed her a favor. New city, new start, new name. Kenya packed 1 suitcase, paid her rent 3 months ahead, and left a note for her neighbor to check on her mother at the hospital. The irony wasn't lost on her. Chase's money had already paid for the surgery, a down payment of good faith before the contract was even signed. Chicago's wind whipped against her face as she stepped off the bus, one hand protectively covering her still flat stomach. A new city, a new name, but the same fear following her like a shadow. Tanya Williams found a job at a small bakery, rented a studio apartment smaller than her Atlanta bathroom, started again, but the dreams came every night. Chase's hands, his voice, the safety she'd felt in his arms. She'd wake breathless, reaching for someone who wasn't there. 6 weeks turned to 8. Her jeans grew tight. Morning sickness hit like a freight train. First baby, her new doctor asked kindly during her first prenatal visit. Yes, Kenya answered, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Let's take a look, shall we? The cold gel, the pressure of the wand, the doctor's thoughtful hum. Well, Ms. Williams, I see. Kenya held her breath. 2 heartbeats. Twins. The room spun around her. Twins. Exactly what he'd asked for in their unconsummated contract. Congratulations, the doctor continued, oblivious to Kenya's shock. Both fetuses look healthy. Identical twins, I believe. Back in her apartment, Kenya curled around her stomach, protective and terrified. How would she explain this miracle to a man she never intended to see again? How would she raise 2 babies alone? What if he found her? Worse, what if he didn't? Her phone pinged with a news alert. She kept his name in her notifications, a secret self-torture. Whitmore Industries CEO sells subsidiary companies, stock plummets. The photo showed Chase looking haggard, thinner, his eyes haunted as he pushed past reporters. What was he doing? Why dismantle what he'd built? She didn't know the answer would arrive at her bakery door in just 3 weeks. Have you ever run from something good because it scared you? Or created distance because getting too close felt dangerous? Comment below if you've been there. Chase dismantled 3 companies, fired 2 private investigators, and crossed 4 state lines, all to find the woman carrying his miracle children. Sir, we have another dead end in Detroit. His assistant's voice crackled through the speakerphone. The credit card trail stops there. Chase stared at the Atlanta skyline from his office window. 72 days since Kenya disappeared. 72 days of searching, of calling in favors, of neglecting his empire to focus on the only thing that mattered now. Pull the security footage from the bus station again, he ordered, and check hospitals in the Midwest. She'll need prenatal care. His assistant hesitated. Sir, with all due respect, how can you be sure she's even pregnant? Chase closed his eyes, remembering that night. How they'd held each other, nothing more. The contract and signed. Her gone by morning. I just know. The truth was stranger than he could explain. The feeling that had woken him at 3 a.m. 3 weeks after she vanished. The absolute certainty. The dreams of 2 tiny heartbeats. His phone buzzed with another call. His board of directors, no doubt furious about his latest company sale. Let them wait. This mattered more. On his desk sat a stack of photos. Kenya at the gala. Kenya entering his building. Kenya at the bus station, looking over her shoulder. And another photo, one no one else had seen. Kenya sleeping beside him that night. Her face peaceful, one hand resting protectively over her stomach even then, as if she already knew. Check Chicago, he said suddenly, a memory surfacing. She mentioned a cousin there once. 3 days later, a junior investigator called with a lead. A new employee at a bakery on Chicago's north side matched Kenya's description. Gave a different name. Started 6 weeks ago. Rain streaked down the windows of his private jet as city lights gave way to darkness. Each mile bringing him closer to the only thing money couldn't buy him. Family. The bakery was small, warm, with hand-painted signs and the smell of fresh bread. Chase stood outside for 10 minutes, heart pounding like a teenager's, before finding the courage to push open the door. The bell chimed cheerfully, and there she stood, flour dusting her cheeks, belly slightly rounded under her apron, eyes widening in recognition and fear. I found you, he said simply, and I'm not leaving without you. Kenya's hand went protectively to her stomach. How did you? I've been looking everywhere. His voice broke on the last word. Why did you run? Customers turned to stare. An older woman behind the counter raised her eyebrows. My shift ends in 20 minutes, Kenya said quietly. Wait outside. Those 20 minutes stretched like years. Chase paced the sidewalk, rehearsing what to say, how to convince her to come back. But when she emerged, her first words stopped him cold. I'm keeping them. Both of them. If that's why you're here. I'm here for you, he interrupted. All 3 of you. What lengths would you go to for family? For a second chance? Tell me in the comments what you would sacrifice. She thought running would protect her secrets, until the man she fled confronted her with truths she couldn't deny. Her tiny apartment kitchen felt microscopic with his presence filling every corner, his expensive cologne mixing with the scent of her freshly baked bread. Worlds colliding in the smallest of spaces. Twins, Chase said, his voice barely above a whisper as he stared at the ultrasound photo on her refrigerator. Just like I asked for. Kenya kept the kitchen island between them. We didn't even. We didn't. I know. His eyes met hers. That's what makes it. A medical impossibility, she finished. A miracle. Kenya sank onto a bar stool, suddenly exhausted. Why are you really here, Chase? To enforce the contract? Because I never signed it. I'm not here for a contract. He remained standing, too large for a small space, too intense for her carefully constructed walls. I'm here because you're carrying my children. Because you ran before I could tell you. Tell me what? She cut him off. That you're sorry? That it was all a mistake? That you've changed your mind about wanting a surrogate? That I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night? The raw honesty in his voice silenced her. Not just because of the babies. Because of you. Kenya's laugh held no humor. You don't even know me. I know enough. He took a step toward her. I know you work 3 jobs to support your mother. I know you bake when you're stressed. Your neighbor told me you left her cookies every Sunday. I know you're brave enough to start over in a new city rather than ask for help. That's not bravery. That's pride. Call it what you want. Another step closer. But I need you to know something. The money for your mother's surgery? It wasn't a down payment. It wasn't conditional. It's done. Paid in full. Kenya's breath caught. Why would you do that? Because it was the right thing to do. His eyes never left hers. I don't want to own you, Kenya. I want to know you. The silence stretched between them, filled with unasked questions. There's something else, she finally said. Something you need to know before this goes any further. Chase waited, giving her space to continue. My ex-fiancé, he's in prison, has been for 3 years. Kenya's hands trembled. We found out about my mother's illness. He said he had a way to get money. It went wrong. Someone got hurt. He was arrested. Chase's expression remained neutral, encouraging her to continue. Before they took him away, he swore he'd find me when he got out. That no one else would have me or anything that belonged to him. She drew a shaky breath. He gets out next month. Early release. He's been writing letters. Threatening letters. That's the real reason I left Atlanta. Understanding dawned in Chase's eyes. You're hiding from him. Kenya nodded. He has connections. People who owe him favors. I changed my name, my hair, everything. But if he finds out about the twins, he won't. Chase's voice hardened with resolve. I won't let him near you or our children. The possessiveness in his tone should have offended her. Instead, it made her feel protected for the first time in years. Pack your things, he said, voice low and controlled. No one threatens what's mine. When was the last time someone saw through your defenses? Did you let them in or push them away harder? Share your experience. She agreed to 1 week in his mountain estate for protection, not knowing those 7 days would unravel 25 years of guarding her heart. Chase's private jet cut through clouds as Kenya watched Atlanta disappear beneath them. One suitcase of belongings. A new life growing inside her. A man she barely knew making promises she wasn't sure he could keep. My home in Aspen is secure, Chase explained, keeping a respectful distance in the leather seat across from her. Private property, gated. My security team knows about the situation with your ex. Kenya nodded, hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. 1 week, then I decide what happens next. 1 week, he agreed. The mountains rose to meet them, majestic and unconcerned with human troubles. His estate nestled among pine trees, modern glass and steel softened by natural wood and stone. Snow fell silently outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, cloaking the mountains in pristine white, a sharp contrast to the heat building between them with each passing day. Her suite connected to his through a shared sitting room. Boundaries established, but paper thin. By day 3, Kenya found herself watching him. The way he conducted business calls from his home office, voice firm but fair. How he asked about her comfort without hovering. The genuine interest when he questioned her about the bakery, her dreams, her childhood. "You're staring again," he said on the evening of the fourth day, looking up from his book by the fireplace. "I'm trying to figure you out," she admitted. The man who wanted to buy a surrogate and the man sitting here now don't match. Chase closed his book. "That night in Atlanta, meeting you changed something in me. We barely knew each other. Sometimes recognition happens in an instant." The fire crackled between them, sparks rising like the tension in the room. "I've never brought anyone here before," he said quietly. "This has always been just mine." Kenya understood. Her heart had been the same, just hers until now. On the sixth night, she came to his room. No pretense of discussion or questions about security. Just Kenya in a simple cotton nightgown, her curls loose around her shoulders, standing in his doorway. "Are you sure?" Chase asked, his voice rough with restraint. Kenya's answer was to step forward, taking his hand and placing it against her cheek. "I'm sure." His hands trembled as they explored her body for the first time, reverent and curious. "Tell me what you like," he whispered against her skin, ego set aside in favor of her satisfaction. When she guided his fingers, showing rather than telling, his eyes darkened with a hunger that matched her own. His inexperience balanced by eager learning, by careful attention to her responses. "Is this okay?" he asked, pausing at each new touch, each discovery. "Yes," she breathed, surprised by how much she meant it. Kenya had expected his wealth to translate to entitlement, to taking. Instead, he approached her body like a gift he wasn't sure he deserved, his pleasure seemingly tied to hers. When they finally came together, the connection went beyond physical, his eyes never leaving hers, his whispers a mixture of awe and tenderness. Not a transaction, not a business arrangement, something neither had planned for. Afterward, tangled in sheets worth more than her car, Kenya realized with startling clarity that what had begun as a business arrangement had become dangerous territory. Because the father of her children wasn't just touching her body. He was reaching places in her heart she'd locked away long ago. "Stay," he murmured against her hair. "Not just for the week. Stay." Kenya closed her eyes, knowing the choice before her was about far more than logistics or safety. It was about trust, the one thing she'd never been able to give freely. Is there something more intimate about teaching someone to touch you? About being someone's first? Share your thoughts below. The threatening text arrived during breakfast. "I know where you are, Kenya. Those babies are mine by right." Her ex had found them, and Chase's face promised violence. Kenya's phone clattered to the table, her hands suddenly ice cold. 1 week had stretched to 3. 3 weeks of safety, of building something she hadn't dared name. Now this. Chase was beside her instantly, picking up the phone, his jaw tightening as he read the message. "Marcus," she whispered. "He's out early. How did he get this number?" Chase's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that came before storms. "I don't know. I changed everything." Kenya's hand went protectively to her stomach. "The babies are safe." Chase was already dialing. "So are you." Security teams swept through the property like silent ghosts, transforming their mountain sanctuary into a fortress while snow continued to fall, beautiful and oblivious to the darkness encroaching on their fragile peace. Chase didn't leave her side, working from his tablet while she curled on the sofa, memories washing over her like acid. Marcus's fists, his threats, the night she'd finally run. "He has no legal claim," Chase assured her, his fingers gentle on her wrist. "These are my children. DNA tests wouldn't prove that," Kenya said quietly. "Not when we never actually. I have the best lawyers in the country. Trust me." Trust. Such a simple word for something that felt impossible. "I need to know everything about him," Chase continued. Every detail could matter. Kenya took a deep breath, then told him about meeting Marcus at church. His charm at first, the gradual control, the isolation from friends and family, then the rage when she wouldn't give him what he wanted. The engagement was his idea. His claim, she explained, voice hollow. I agreed because saying no seemed more dangerous than saying yes. Chase listened without interrupting, his eyes growing darker, his hand never leaving hers. The night he was arrested, he told me I belonged to him, that no one else would ever have me. You belong to yourself, Chase said fiercely. No one else. Night fell, bringing no more messages, but no peace either. Kenya felt Marcus's presence like a shadow, hovering at the edges of her newfound happiness. When Chase revealed his plan, marriage for maximum legal protection, Kenya froze. This isn't about love, he assured her quickly. It's strategy. Marriage gives me legal standing as the father of your children. As your husband, I can protect you both legally and physically. Kenya searched his face. Just strategy? Something flickered in his eyes. Would it be so terrible if it were more? The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Before she could answer, her phone rang, her mother's ringtone. Kenya grabbed it, heart racing. Mom, is everything okay? Her mother's voice came through, shaking. Kenya, baby, there was a man here asking questions, showing your picture, saying he's the father of your babies. Kenya's eyes met Chase's across the room, and she knew their time had run out. How far would you go to protect someone you're falling for? Where is the line between protection and possession? I want to hear your thoughts. She wore white lace in a courthouse ceremony with armed guards at the doors. A business arrangement wrapped in wedding attire, ignoring the inconvenient truth that her heart wasn't following the contract. 3 days from threat to marriage. Kenya hardly recognized her life anymore. The judge's chambers smelled of old books and furniture polish. Winter lights streaming through dusty blinds as they exchanged vows meant for protection, but spoken with unexpected emotion. This is temporary, Kenya reminded herself as Chase slid a platinum band onto her finger. Just until Marcus gives up. But Chase's eyes told a different story as he repeated, I do. Not just duty or protection in his gaze, but something deeper that made her hands tremble. Outside, reporters gathered like vultures. Someone had leaked the story. Atlanta bakery worker marries billionaire CEO after whirlwind romance. The headlines would start tomorrow. Mrs. Whitmore. Chase's driver opened the car door with a respectful nod. The name felt foreign, wrong, yet right in ways she couldn't explain. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow, Chase said as they drove back to the estate. We control the narrative. Tell our story before Marcus can tell his. And what exactly is our story? Kenya asked, Chase's fingers intertwined with hers. That we met, that we fell in love, that these children are the beginning of our family. A convenient fiction. Is it fiction? His question hung in the air between them. Back at the estate, champagne waited, sparkling cider for Kenya. A small cake. Concessions to normalcy in an abnormal situation. Night fell, and with it came a question neither had voiced. Husband and wife. Separate rooms? Chase broke the silence. I'll take the guest suite tonight, if you prefer. Kenya thought of Marcus, of threats, of the babies growing inside her. But mostly, she thought of the man standing before her, a man who had moved mountains to protect her, yet still asked permission for the smallest things. No, she said softly, stay with me tonight. What began as hesitant touches quickly blazed into something more desperate, more raw than their first night together. Kenya clutched at him like an anchor in a storm, while Chase whispered her name like a prayer against her skin. Their bodies spoke truths their words couldn't yet form, about need and belonging, about fears and hopes. Not just physical release, but emotional surrender. Curled against his chest that night, Kenya almost confessed the growing feelings she couldn't name, until his phone rang with news that changed everything. He's been spotted, Chase said, his body tensing as he listened to his security chief. At the airport, he's heading west. Toward us, Kenya whispered. We'll be ready. Chase pulled her closer. I won't let him near you. His confidence should have comforted her. Instead, Kenya felt a chill she couldn't explain, because she knew Marcus, knew his determination, his connections, his willingness to hurt anyone who stood in his way, even a billionaire husband. Have you ever entered an arrangement only to find real feelings developing? Did you fight it or embrace it? Share your story below. Nothing prepares you for seeing the man who once broke your bones standing on your property. Not even having a billionaire husband and private security force between you. Security footage showed him at the property line, snow swirling around his tall frame. A dark blot against white purity, just like the memories he represented in her mind. That's him, Kenya confirmed, her voice surprisingly steady as she stared at the monitor in Chase's home office. That's Marcus. Chase's hand tightened on her shoulder. He won't get past the gate, but he already had. Past the gate and into her mind, where she could hear his voice, feel his fists, remember his promises to find her no matter where she ran. I want to see him, she said suddenly. Chase stared at her. Absolutely not. I need to face him. Kenya. From behind security glass, she clarified. With guards. But I need to do this, Chase. Or I'll always be running. Something in her tone must have convinced him. Because 20 minutes later, she sat in the estate security office, bulletproof glass between her and the man who had haunted her dreams for years. Marcus looked smaller than she remembered, less powerful. His confident smirk faltered when he saw her rounded belly. So it's true, he said, eyes narrowing. You're having some rich man's babies. Kenya placed her hands protectively over her stomach. What do you want, Marcus? What's mine? His eyes glittered with malice. You made promises to me, Kenya, before God. I made those promises under threat, she replied, finding strength she didn't know she had. They were never real. Those babies aren't yours. Her voice cut like steel. They never will be. Marcus leaned forward, pressing against the glass. You think your rich husband can protect you? Money can't stop what's coming, Kenya. Ask him about Jacksonville. Ask what really happened. Before she could respond, Chase was there, flanked by security guards. You're trespassing, he told Marcus coldly. Leave now or be removed. Marcus smiled, but his eyes remained dead. You think you know her? Ask about Jacksonville. Ask what she did. The guards moved forward, taking Marcus by the arms. He didn't resist, his eyes locked on Kenya's. This isn't over, he called as they led him away. Not by a long shot. As police led him away in handcuffs, he shouted words that chilled her blood. Ask her about Jacksonville. Ask what really happened. Chase's questioning gaze found hers across the driveway, and Kenya knew her final secret was about to surface. Later, alone in their bedroom, Chase asked the question she'd been dreading. What happened in Jacksonville, Kenya? She closed her eyes, knowing this might be the end of everything they'd built. The final test of whatever existed between them. The reason Marcus went to prison, she began, her voice barely audible, wasn't just robbery. It was attempted murder. Chase waited, silent. The person he tried to kill, Kenya continued, a single tear sliding down her cheek, was me. What would you say to someone who hurt you if you could face them from a position of strength? Would you seek closure or justice? Comment below. Some secrets stay buried for years until someone digs them up, like the real reason Kenya had been engaged to a monster and the blood that still stained her hands. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across the room as Kenya's words painted darker shadows from her past, images of fear, survival, and choices made in desperate moments. We met at church, she began, unable to look at Chase as she spoke. I was 19. My father had just died. Marcus was charming, attentive, said all the right things. Chase sat across from her, perfectly still, giving her space to find the words. 6 months in, he changed. Small things at first. Checking my phone, questioning where I'd been. Then bigger things. Who I could see. What I could wear. Kenya's fingers traced the faint scar at her collarbone. A souvenir from the first time she'd tried to leave. I stayed because he convinced me no one else would want me. That I was damaged goods. And because he threatened my mother if I left. The engagement? His idea. His claim on me. The ring came with a black eye. Chase's knuckles whitened, but he remained silent, letting her continue. 3 years in, I was planning my escape. Secret bank account. Bus ticket to Jacksonville. My cousin lived there. You remember, the one in Chicago now. Kenya took a shaky breath. Marcus found my bus ticket. He beat me worse than ever before. Said if I left, he'd kill my mother, then find me. I believed him. Chase moved then, kneeling before her, taking her cold hands in his. You don't have to. I do, she interrupted. You need to know everything. The next part came harder. Memories she'd locked away, fighting to stay buried. That night, I took his gun, packed a bag while he slept. I was leaving, really leaving, but he woke up, caught me at the door. Kenya's voice dropped to a whisper. He came at me. I had the gun. I pulled the trigger. The confession hung in the air between them. I shot him, Chase, in the shoulder. He fell. There was so much blood. Her voice broke. I called 911, then ran. Made it to Jacksonville. Was staying with my cousin when the police found me. Chase's grip on her hands tightened. Marcus told them I tried to kill him to steal his money. But the evidence, my injuries, the history of hospital visits, neighbors' testimonies, it changed the narrative. He went to prison for attempted murder. I was free. Why didn't you tell me? Because I shot a man, Kenya said, finally meeting his eyes. Because I'm not the innocent victim you think I am. You defended yourself, Chase countered. That doesn't make you guilty. In Jacksonville, while waiting for the trial, I found out I was pregnant, she continued, as if he hadn't spoken. His baby. Chase went very still. What happened? I lost it. At 3 months. The stress, the trauma. Kenya closed her eyes. Marcus blamed me. Said I did it on purpose. That's why he's fixated on these babies. He thinks they're replacing what I took from him. The room fell silent, except for the crackling fire. Kenya waited for judgment, for withdrawal. Instead, Chase knelt before her, hands on her rounded belly. Now I understand why you ran from me, he said softly. You're a survivor, not a victim. And that's exactly the mother I want for our children. For the first time since she could remember, Kenya allowed herself to cry. Not the quiet tears of fear or loss, but deep, racking sobs of release. Chase held her through it all, his strength a shelter rather than a cage. He can't hurt you anymore, Chase promised against her hair. None of this changes how I see you. And how do you see me? She asked, suddenly needing to hear it. His answer was simple, devastating in its honesty. As the strongest person I've ever known. As someone I'm falling in love with. Would you forgive someone for hiding their past if they did it out of shame and fear? How much of ourselves are we obligated to reveal? Share your thoughts. The headlines splashed across every tabloid in America. Billionaire CEO's pregnant bride. Secret past revealed. Kenya stared at her phone in horror, scrolling through article after article. Photos of her outside the courthouse. Her mugshot from 3 years ago. Even medical records, somehow, leaked to the press. They know everything, she whispered as Chase entered their bedroom. The shooting, the miscarriage, us. Chase took the phone gently from her hands. We knew this might happen. Not like this. Kenya's voice cracked. They're calling me a gold digger, a criminal, saying I trapped you. Camera flashes exploded like lightning outside the estate gates. Reporters shouting questions that reduced their complex story to sensational soundbites, while inside, they created a fortress of truth and tenderness against the storm. Whitmore Industries stock dropped 12 points this morning, Chase said, sitting beside her on the bed. The board called an emergency meeting. Because of me, because people fear what they don't understand. He took her hands. This changes nothing. But did change things. Investors pulling out. Death threats in their mail. Chase's mother calling hourly, demanding explanations. You need to make a statement, Kenya told him that evening. Distance yourself from me. Save your company. Chase's laugh held no humor. You still don't get it, do you? There is no choice here. Not for me. That night, when the world seemed determined to tear them apart, they clung to each other with desperate hands and whispered promises. Physical connection became an anchor in the storm, each touch a defiance against those who would separate them. Kenya woke to Chase's voice, low and sharp, coming from his office. I don't care about the stock price, Robert, he was saying. Find the source of the leak and fire them. No, I will not ask her to step back. Yes, I'm aware of my responsibilities. She paused in the doorway, watching him defend them. The board meeting is tomorrow, he said when he noticed her. They want me to choose between me and the company. They think so, but there's no choice to make. Kenya stepped forward, resting her forehead against his chest. Your life's work is right here, he finished, hands cradling her belly. Everything else is just business. When Chase's mother called demanding he divorce, that violent gold digger, immediately, his response changed everything between them. I love her, mother, he said, eyes locked with Kenya's. I love her more than the empire you think she's threatening. The words hung in the air between them, the first time love had been named out loud. Later, as reporters continued their siege outside, Chase held her close on the sofa. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we take control of the narrative. Together. What if they don't believe us? Then we build something they can't deny. His hand traced patterns on her stomach where their twins grew. A family, a future, a love story they didn't see coming. Kenya nodded against his shoulder, finding strength in his certainty even as doubt whispered in her mind. Because tomorrow, at the board meeting, everything they built could crumble beneath them. Have you ever had your personal life exposed or judged unfairly? How did you handle it? Share your experience if you're comfortable. Kenya's water broke during a board meeting where Chase was fighting to keep his company, twin timing as dramatic as the parents who created them. She hadn't planned to attend, had promised to wait at home, but something told her Chase shouldn't face this alone. The Whitmore Industries boardroom fell silent when she entered, 12 suited executives staring at her 7-month pregnant figure like she was a ghost. Chase rose immediately, coming to her side. This is a closed meeting, Mr. Whitmore, the chairman said coldly. This is my wife, Chase replied simply. She stays. Kenya took the seat Chase offered, feeling the weight of judgment from around the table. The oldest board member wouldn't even look at her. 2 others whispered behind their hands. Chase stood at the head of the table, commanding despite the chaos of recent weeks. Before you vote on my leadership, I want to address the allegations directly. He told their story, the real story. Meeting Kenya, her mother's illness, the unconventional beginning that blossomed into love. His voice never wavered, even when discussing the most painful parts. The woman you've read about in tabloids isn't real, he finished. The woman sitting here, my wife, the mother of my children, is the strongest person I know. And if choosing her cost me this company, I make that choice gladly. The chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, while your personal loyalty is admirable, our responsibility is to shareholders. Kenya felt it then, a strange pop, warmth flooding between her legs. Chase, she whispered, gripping the table. He turned, saw her face, and knew instantly. Call an ambulance, he ordered, already at her side. I'm only 32 weeks. Kenya gasped as pain gripped her body. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly ahead as they raced toward delivery, fluorescent lights blurring overhead like the past 9 months. A rush of fear, hope, and unexpected love culminating in this moment. Premature labor, the doctor explained in the delivery room. The stress likely triggered it. The babies? Chase asked, his voice stripped of all business confidence, leaving only fear. Their heartbeats are stable, but we need to move quickly. Your wife's blood pressure is concerning. Kenya clutched Chase's hand as another contraction hit. Don't leave me. Never, he promised, pressing his forehead to hers. Not for anything. His phone buzzed repeatedly, the board vote happening without him. Neither of them cared anymore. Hours blurred together. Pain. Doctors' voices. Chase's steady presence, wiping her brow, whispering encouragement. Kenya fighting for breath between contractions. We need to do an emergency C-section, the doctor finally announced. The babies are in distress. Kenya's eyes found Chase's, terror reflected between them. I love you, he said, the words simple but weighted with everything they'd been through. All of you. The operating room lights were harsh, clinical. Chase held her hand until they wheeled her away, his face the last thing she saw before anesthesia pulled her under. She woke to beeping monitors and Chase's face, drawn with worry. The babies, she asked immediately, throat raw. Alive, he said, voice breaking. Small but fighting. When the doctor emerged from checking the twins, His face grave, Chase felt his world tilting. "Your wife is stable," he said finally, "but we need to talk about the babies." In that moment, Chase realized he'd never prayed before, but he was praying now. Not to the God of his strict upbringing, but to whatever force had brought Kenya into his life, had created these miracle twins. "Their lungs aren't fully developed," the doctor explained. "The next 48 hours are critical." Kenya's hand found Chase's, squeezing with what little strength she had left. "Chase," she whispered, "the board meeting." "Doesn't matter," he cut her off gently. "I've already resigned as CEO. But your company is just a company." His eyes held absolute certainty. "You and our daughters are my life now. What would you sacrifice for love? What tells you someone truly values you above everything else? I want to hear your stories." For 72 hours, their twins fought for life in incubators while Kenya and Chase fought for something else entirely. Faith in a future they'd never planned, but suddenly couldn't imagine living without. The NICU hummed with machines keeping their tiny daughters alive. Each beep a reminder of fragility, each steady rhythm a promise of possibility. While outside the window, mountain snow continued its silent, patient descent. "You should eat something," Chase urged, offering Kenya a sandwich from the hospital cafeteria. She shook her head, eyes never leaving the two incubators where their daughters lay. Impossibly small, impossibly perfect. Arya at 4 pounds, 3 ounces. Maya at just under 4 pounds. "They have your nose," Chase said softly, standing beside her wheelchair. "And your determination." Kenya managed a weak smile. "They have your stubbornness." The doctor spoke in careful terms, cautious optimism, critical window, hourly assessments. Words that measured life in minutes rather than years. Chase hadn't left the hospital since the births. His resignation from Whitmore Industries barely made the financial news. Overshadowed by a brewing scandal involving the board chairman and the leaked stories about Kenya. Karma, perhaps, but neither of them cared about corporate politics anymore. On the second night, Aria's oxygen levels dropped suddenly. Alarms blared. Medical staff rushed in. "You need to step outside," a nurse told him firmly. Kenya tried to stand, nearly collapsed from her still healing C-section. Chase caught her, held her as they watched through the glass window, helpless as doctors worked over their daughter's tiny body. "Please," Kenya whispered, not sure who she was asking. "Please." Hours later, when Arya stabilized, they cried together. Not the quiet tears of fear, but deep, grateful sobs that shook their bodies and bound them closer. The third day brought a different kind of visitor. Kenya's mother arrived, having finally been cleared for travel after her surgery. "My baby's having babies," she said, embracing Kenya carefully before turning to Chase with surprising warmth. "Thank you for loving my daughter." Chase, who faced business rivals without blinking, found himself speechless before this small woman who had raised Kenya alone. That night, while Kenya slept in the hospital bed, Chase sat between the incubators, a hand resting gently on each one. "I don't know how to be a father," he confessed to his sleeping daughters. "My own father was cold, distant. Business was his religion, not family." He swallowed hard. "But I promised to learn, to be better, to be worthy of you both." When both babies stabilized on the same night, the doctor smiled for the first time in days. "It's like they made a pact in there," he said. Classic twin behavior. Chase looked at Kenya, her eyes red-rimmed, but hopeful. "I think I need to make a pact too," he whispered. "But this one involves forever." Kenya's hand found his across the space between them. "I think we already did." Outside, the first light of dawn broke over the mountains, painting the snow-covered peaks in shades of promise. Inside, two heartbeats grew stronger, steady and synchronized like the love that had created them against all odds. Have you witnessed someone become their best self during a crisis? The moment someone rises beyond what you thought possible? Tag that person if you can. While their daughters grew stronger each day, Chase and Kenya faced the ruins of his business empire with a question no one expected. Did they even want to rebuild it? 3 months after the twins' birth, spring had come to Aspen. The snow melted, revealing new growth beneath. Kenya sat on the terrace, Arya sleeping against her chest, while Chase paced nearby with Maya. taking conference calls with one hand, cradling his daughter with the other. "No, I'm not interested in returning as CEO," he was saying, his voice firm but distracted as Maya grabbed at his tie. "But I am interested in discussing a new direction for the foundation." Kenya watched him. This man who had walked away from billions without hesitation, who now measured wealth in tiny milestones. The first time the twins breathed without assistance, their first real cries, the day they finally came home. The home office had transformed, blueprints for companies replaced by designs for a bakery, spreadsheets giving way to recipes, the smell of vanilla extract and cinnamon mingling with the scent of fine leather, and success redefined. "You're serious about this bakery idea?" Chase asked later, joining her on the sofa after both babies were asleep. "Never been more serious," Kenya confirmed. "The perfect location just opened downtown. My mom could help manage it while I'm with the girls." "And you call it?" "From scratch." She smiled at his raised eyebrow. "Because that's how we built this. From nothing but an impossible situation." Chase pulled her closer. "I like it." His phone buzzed with another call, this one from his former CFO with an opportunity to buy back controlling interest in Whitmore Industries. A chance to reclaim what he'd lost. Kenya held her breath, waiting for his answer. "I appreciate the offer, Michael," Chase said, eyes locked with Kenya's. "But my priorities have changed." Later that night, they came together with the knowledge of each other's bodies now. What began as teaching had become a dance of mutual pleasure. "I never knew it could be like this," he confessed against her neck, moving within her with confident tenderness. "Like what?" she gasped. His answer was simple, like coming home. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, they talked about the future, not of corporations and stock options, but of first steps and bedtime stories. "The foundation needs direction," Chase mused. "Something meaningful. Medical assistance for single parents," Kenya suggested immediately. "Support for women escaping situations like mine." Chase nodded, ideas forming. "We could partner with hospitals, create a fund specifically for emergency treatments when insurance fails." "We could change lives," Kenya whispered. "You already changed mine," he replied. As they finalized plans for her bakery, from scratch, would open in downtown Aspen next spring, Chase received a call that made him pale. "It's about your ex," he told Kenya carefully. "There's something you need to know. The past, it seemed, wasn't quite finished with them. What would you give up for the right partnership? What dreams would you reshape? Comment below with what matters most in your ideal relationship." 1 year after making an impossible choice in desperation, Kenya stood in her thriving bakery holding twin girls, living proof that sometimes the worst decisions lead to the greatest blessings. Morning light streamed through the bakery windows, catching on the gold lettering that spelled "from scratch." A testament to how they had built this life together, mixing fear with courage, pain with healing, until something beautiful rose from the heat of their trials. "They're getting so big," Kenya's mother commented, watching the twins toddle between tables, charming customers with identical grins. Kenya nodded, pride squeezing her heart as she watched Aria's determined steps, Maya's curious fingers exploring everything. 1 year old and already unstoppable, just like the love that had created them. The bell above the door chimed, and Chase entered, bringing the scent of mountain air and expensive cologne. The twins spotted him immediately, squealing and racing toward their father with uncoordinated enthusiasm. "They're my girls," he laughed, scooping them both up effortlessly. Kenya watched them. This powerful man brought to his knees by two tiny humans, the same man who had restructured his entire life around their family. The Whitmore Foundation now led the country in medical assistance for vulnerable families. Chase worked from home 3 days a week. The empire he'd built had transformed rather than collapsed, guided now by purpose rather than profit. "Ready for our visitor?" he asked quietly when he reached her. Kenya took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The Marcus who entered their bakery an hour later was nothing like the man who had haunted her nightmares. Prison had aged him, so had the intensive therapy program, the condition Chase had arranged for his early release. "Thank you for seeing me," Marcus said, his voice lacking its former arrogance. They sat at a corner table, Chase beside Kenya, the twins with her mother in the back office. "The program is working," Marcus continued. "I wanted you to know that." To apologize in person, Kenya studied him, searching for deception and finding only exhaustion. "Why now?" "Because I need to make amends before moving forward." "My counselor says." "I don't care what your counselor says," Kenya interrupted. "I care about knowing my family is safe." Marcus nodded. "I'm leaving Colorado, moving to Portland. My sister's there. She's helping me start over." "And us?" Chase asked, his voice level but with steel beneath. "You won't hear from me again." Marcus looked directly at Kenya. "What I did to you was unforgivable. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to know I'm getting help." After he left, Kenya stood motionless, feeling a weight lifting she hadn't realized she still carried. "You okay?" Chase asked, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Better than okay, she realized. Free. That night, after putting the twins to bed in their nursery where hand-painted constellations spanned the ceiling, Kenya and Chase stood together at the window, looking out at the mountains that had witnessed their journey. In the quiet hours before dawn, they still reached for each other with a hunger that hadn't diminished, his lips tracing the stretch marks on her belly with reverence, her fingers mapping the worry lines on his face that fatherhood had etched there. Their bodies told the story that words never could. "I have something for you," Chase said afterward, reaching into the bedside drawer. He placed a small box in her hand. Inside wasn't jewelry, but a key. "What's this?" "The deed to your mother's house in Atlanta. Paid in full." His eyes held hers. "Plus college funds for the twins. Everything legally in your name." Kenya stared at him. "Why?" "So you know you're free to stay or go. That you're with me by choice, not necessity." Tears filled her eyes as she closed the box, set it aside, and took his face in her hands. "Chase Whitmore," she said softly, "I have everything I need right here." What unexpected blessing came from your darkest moment? Would you change your past if you could, knowing it led you where you are? Share your journey in the comments. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us how love finds us in the most unexpected places. Tell me in the comments which chapter resonated most with you. And remember, sometimes the contracts we sign with our heads get overruled by the commitments we make with our hearts.